I'm Chris from Redmen TV. Do us a favour, do yourself a favour and subscribe to the Liverpool Connection podcast. Do it. Do it now.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Liverpool Connection podcast. This is our 3-year anniversary podcast, and I couldn't think of a better person to come on as our guest. Since the podcast began, I've wanted him on. I've tried many different avenues to get him on, and then I've finally got him on. I know Steve can't wait. I can't wait. But Liverpool Connection podcast is proud to present Jan MOLBY. How are you, Jan? After that little fiasco with getting you on Zoom?
Yeah, that wasn't easy, was it? Anyway, let me just congratulate you. Happy anniversary. You've done a good job over the 3 years. So excellent. And I guess there's been plenty to talk about over the last 3 years. But it's been pretty eventful, hasn't it? So.
It has, we've had a good 3 years, and hopefully, many more to come. We love doing it. It's not about the fame, not about money. It's about talking about Liverpool Football Club. As you know yourself. So I want to delve into your past. The first team you played for in the Danish league was Kolding. Am I saying it right?
Absolutely.
So. How did you get from Kolding to Ajax? Because Ajax, still are one of the European giants, so to speak. They have an amazing academy. So how did you get from the Danish league to the Dutch league?
So the Danish club I played for is a club I played for when I was 5 years of age, and just obviously gradually you go through the age groups, and then at 17 I got into the first team, became an under-21 Danish international, and then at 18 I made my debut for the full Danish international team. And I guess that Ajax have always had some connections to Scandinavia. They've always seen that as a nice place to scout young players, and there was a few clubs asking about me at the time, Ipswich Town being the only English club at the time. But I guess once you hear the name Ajax, it was almost like a no-brainer. And then, sort of unbeknown to me, I wasn't even aware of the fact that Johan Cruyff had returned to Ajax as a player in the early 80s. And, the vice president said, and you get to play with Johan. I went, where do I sign? So the rest is kind of history. But then, being at Ajax is always just a short term, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's one of those clubs you play for, but you almost can't wait till they go, we're done with you now, Jan, we're going to sell you. And for me, it was 2 years. I was there for 2 years.
And with Liverpool coming in for you, well, first it was the trial, wasn't it? So what I never understood these 10-day trials. I mean, it's not much to really, I guess, knock them off their feet. I mean, 10 days is really nothing. But Joe Fagan obviously saw something in you in those 10 days to, put the bid in.
I can guarantee you that trials wasn't something that Liverpool dealt in either. But I think the fact that Graham Souness left unexpectedly in 1984, and what Liverpool tend to do in those days, when they were ahead of the curve, they already knew who the next guy was going to be. But I guess they thought that Graham wouldn't need replacing for another 3 or 4 years. Hence the reason that when he left, they became a little bit desperate, because they looked at the British market and couldn't find anything they liked. And I think there was a few things. I mean, I just turned 21. I was available at a relatively low fee. And I also think that they probably looked at the sort of physical element of it, and probably liked the size of me and thinking, he won't struggle with the physical element of the game, although the physical element was never my strength in terms of how I played the game, isn't it? But so having played 2 years for Ajax and being a Danish international, being offered a trial, it was a bit weird, but the message was clear. You know, you come here for 10 days. If not, we forget about you and we go elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And I thought, you know, am I really going to throw that away and not give it a go for 10 days? I knew, I don't want to sound big-headed, but I knew that, you know, had I gone to Liverpool and not done it, I could have gone elsewhere. There was no shortage of clubs that was looking, you know what I mean? But, you know, Liverpool was sort of the pinnacle one. They just won the European Cup yet again. And I played in 2 European Cups with Ajax and never got beyond round 1, you know what I mean? So I had a lot of respect for anyone who could achieve success in that competition. And so going on trial was a no-brainer. And then I guess, you know, it's a bit of luck, isn't it? But I just, the way I view myself is that I think I can settle into the way I want to play pretty quick because I was a technical player, you know, and I know that they do a lot of short-sighted games in training, you know, and I thought, well, I can do that, you know what I mean? So in terms of that, they'll probably think that I'm more or less what they need is, you know, some technical, know the game, and I can play a bit. And so I wasn't overly worried about the 10 days. It's just always whether, you know, the quality that Liverpool are looking for.
Well, I mean, it's unheard of these days, obviously, Jan, you know, 200k for a footballer, especially a footballer like yourself. I really like the story of how different Liverpool were to Ajax. Ajax, you know, you said you did the warm-ups and everything. At Liverpool, it was like non-existent, like get on the pitch.
You go, I mean, it's totally two different setups, isn't it, the way that they run the football clubs. You know, Ajax bring in young players and they hope to make them better so they can sell them. Liverpool bring in footballers for them to play for Liverpool. You know, Liverpool is an end destination, isn't it? You don't go to Liverpool and hoping to improve and then wanting to move on. You go to Liverpool hoping to improve and then being able to stay there for as long as, you know, it's possible, isn't it? So all the things that we did at Ajax was extremely professional. Liverpool were totally different in terms of the lack of warm-ups and the lack of sort of preparation before the games. But they brought you in to play football, you know, and they always said that, listen, son, and they used to call you son, listen, son, we believe you can play the game. Now let's go, you know. And I have to be honest, personally, I love that. I love that challenge of them letting you play because all I'd had, playing 18 months for Colding, 2 years for Ajax, being involved with the Danish national team for 2 years, was being told basically what to do, isn't it? You know, and now I'm arriving at the best team in Europe, and they're kind of going, "Go on, get on with it." And one thing I've never particularly shied away from is responsibility. You know, so very quickly, yeah, I just really enjoyed that kind of freedom that you got to try and express yourself.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, the boot room, Ronnie Moran. How was it working? You know, because I've heard stories, you know, from my granddad and some of his mates, just how, you know, Bob Paisley obviously had gone, but it was Joe and Ronnie Moran. How was it to look up to, you know, I mean, they still are like some icons at Liverpool, but as a 21-year-old to look up at these men.
So, although Bob was no longer the manager, Bob was still very much around. You know, Bob used to come in and have a cup of tea, and he'd come down to training ground every now and again. And his presence became even more when Kenny Dalglish became the player manager, and Bob was even more involved, isn't it? But you look at these. So the coach I had at Ajax he was a young coach, you know what I mean? But nobody was in doubt that he was the coach and he enjoyed being the coach. I think the first two, like you talk about Bob Paisley and Joe Fagan, they never felt the need to let you know that they were the manager. They never particularly looked like they enjoyed being the manager. But I guess they enjoyed the responsibility of being in charge of Liverpool Football Club, isn't it? But they never felt the need to shout off the top of the roof for anything, isn't it? They were just there all the time, and they were managers when they needed to be. Apart from that, they could just sit on the sort of pavilion we had down in Melbourne and drink a cup of tea while they're watching the training, but always watching. And doing things totally different in terms of the coach at Ajax, who was always on the training ground with us and taking all the exercises. These were more watchers, they watched and they watched, and they even watched for injuries, they half the time they knew you were injured before you knew yourself, isn't it? So they were much more watchers than doers.
I'll bring Steve in.
Hey, Jan, thanks for joining us, and appreciate your, making time for our special anniversary episode. One thing that Daz and I have always shared is our desire to get you on the show. And I know the people that have been with us from day one, they have heard me talk about my experiences of meeting you for the first time was during a Legends match in Liverpool in 2015. And that's how I got the shirt on the back. I knew you were playing in it. I went to the shop, got a shirt, and you signed it for me. And I remember playing that game, and after the game, the first message I sent out to one of my mates back, I said, Jan still has the touch. He can make those passes. And I was so happy to, have been playing with you. So this day like kind of brings it all full circle. So appreciate you being on the show today.
I know we remember those games well, Steve. I mean, it was great fun for us as well. To bring fans from all over the world together and come to Anfield, isn't it? Meeting one or two of the players, and I'm delighted to hear that you had a good day. That was the idea. It's always the idea of selling what everybody hopes Liverpool is going to be like, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I guess you were, I'm saying anxious, but you were excited and didn't quite know what to expect, isn't it? But it sounds like you had a good day.
No, we had a great time. We've had, Alan Kennedy was part of that, and we brought him over here to Austin, and hopefully we can bring you here to Austin one day and meet our supporters club. But we could plan that down the road. I wanted to ask you, coming from Ajax over to that Liverpool squad that had, like you said, really were at the heights, right? And then you joined that club, and it was kind of in transition. They didn't win a trophy that first year you were with them, I think, for the first time since like 1974, 75. And then King Kenny, decided or became the player coach after that season. How was that transition year for you? Being new to the squad, knowing that they had achieved so much, and being the new player on the team.
It was difficult because I was a new player instead of Graham Souness, and quite a lot, and rightly so, was made of the hole that he left leaving in midfield, isn't he? I mean, and for a while, everybody was kind of going, we're missing Souness, which I guess in a way we were, but I don't think Liverpool were ever going to replace Souness with a single player. You would have to do something totally different, which probably a bit more than when Kenny Dalglish became the player coach that we managed to do that. Frustrating, I can guarantee you. It was frustrating for the club. We got to the European Cup final. We lost in the FA Cup semi-final after the replay. But the biggest blow was obviously the old First Division, because it was Everton who took off us, and that was a real blow. So as much as they never let you know of the pressures of playing for Liverpool and having to win, and they never really of the disappointments either. But you can sense a football club that's used to winning trophies, and for many of other football clubs, the season we had in 84-85 would have been a rip-roaring success. It just wasn't. That's not the reason that we changed the coaches, because Joe didn't want to be the coach anymore, and then Kenny did what he did. But then he came in and realised that the team needed changing, and if you look pretty quick, we end up with almost half a brand new team. Which luckily, all of a sudden, I was one of the key members.
Kind of what you're made an honorary Scouser by Liverpool, back a few years ago, and seeing the plight of Everton these days, and I wanted to kind of talk to you about that FA Cup final against them. Maybe give us some thoughts of that day, but also kind of bring it back to the current situation of how much both teams mean to the city, and as an ambassador or an honorary Scouser, that title given to you. What does it all mean to you?
Well, if you start with Everton first, there's not many cities who have two teams. So having two teams is a great honour, isn't it? And I also think that there has generally, maybe not so much anymore, but there has generally been a sort of a friendly rivalry between the fans of the two clubs, isn't it? So I think that from our point of view, we need an Everton in the Premier League. You know, I think it would devalue everything that we do, that Everton are no longer in it. In terms of the honorary Scouser thing in 2009, bizarre really, because first I became aware of was that it was in the local paper, the Liverpool Echo, and people could make suggestions of who should be made honorary Scousers. And I saw it, I never gave it a second thought really. And then I got a message that I'd been selected and would have come to the town hall. And yet again, I thought, well, what is this? You know what I mean? So, but eventually the Lord Mayor's office got hold of me and said, would you come, Jan? So I went, yeah. I said, well, what type of people is it? He said, oh, it's all sorts of people, you know. It's the guy who built the John Lennon Liverpool Airport. It's, you know, people who built big things. It's professors and doctors. And I went, really? Yeah. He said, funny enough, yeah. And he said, I'll guarantee you when you get there, you'll be the only one everybody knows. You know, he said, because the others aren't necessarily, but I'll guarantee you, he said, they'll all know you because they would either still live in the city or have lived in the city. And when you come to Liverpool, the first thing you do is go to Anfield, isn't it? And to be fair, again, without sounding big-headed, but it was quite bizarre because I had all these, like an Italian guy coming up to you, a Hungarian doctor, and saying, you know, during my time at Anfield, during my time in Liverpool, you gave me many a great pleasures, he said, you know, really honoured. So when we got to the town hall, it was kind of, but I have to be honest, it was an unexpected thing, but I think looking back, it's almost like a bigger honour than I could have even anticipated, you know, and still to this day, I mean, not just the fact that you mentioned it, but so many people mention it, you know, when I travel around the country and they go, I remember you're the honorary Scouser, aren't you? So yeah, it's quite nice.
Yeah, I'm going to nominate Daza next time I'm in Liverpool. I'm going to nominate him for honorary Scouser. Since he's been in the United States so long, I get his roots back to him. I want to transition real quick to you know, your international career. Since the World Cup is coming into this region in 2026, I know you're part of the Danish squad that went to Mexico in 1986. You have some good stories about that time back then. Obviously, that was the you know, the hand of God for Maradona and English's exploits events. But do you have any personal experience that you could share with us?
Well, obviously, it was 1984 was the first time Denmark qualified for the European Championship. In 1986 was the first time we qualified for the World Cup, and I was part of both squads. And you know, I guess the first time is the special one, isn't it? But I remember the sort of European Championship you can sort of handle because it's like almost home turf, isn't it? It's all Europeans, and we gave it a go. We lost in the semi-final on penalties. But the World Cup 86 is different, isn't it? Now it's the whole world, isn't it? I guess at that time you especially think in the South Americans, you know, still with the Brazils and the Argentinas and whatever. So the World Cup was a big thing, and we had no expectations. But we did okay. Although when you look and think we got knocked out, losing 5-1 to Spain, some people say, well, you didn't do particularly well, but it was fantastic. And you know, obviously landing in that group with Scotland and West Germany and also Uruguay, it was tremendous. But you know, getting opportunities to play against Scotland and to play against so many players I played against in the English League, but of course also playing against Graham Souness, the very guy I'd replaced. And lo and behold, after we played Scotland, they rocked up at the same hotel as us. We stayed in the same hotel for 48 hours. You couldn't imagine that today, could you? Two teams staying in the same hotel, but we did, you know. That's the first time I ever got to meet Graham Souness, but it was also because Steve Nicol was there and Graham Sharp, who played for Everton, whatever. So it was sort of a friendly World Cup, isn't it? But yeah, it was tremendous memories. And of course, the one thing we all wanted to do was play Argentina. We all wanted to play against Maradona because you want to play against the best, just to see what is the gap. You know, I played with a lot of good players over the years. I played against a lot of good players. And in the end, the gap isn't that big. You know, we can all play. So the gap isn't that big, but the one missing was Diego. I would have loved to have played against him just to see, is he that good? And I guess I would have found out that he probably was.
Daza?
I want to go back to one of my favourite moments, watching you at the FA Cup final versus Everton. Because we didn't start off too well. I mean, your man of the match performance. Can you take us through that game? Like, half time, like what needed to change a bit?
Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously the whole day was one of the reasons I wanted to come to England, because I wanted to play at Wembley in an FA Cup final. That was massive ambition of mine. And then when you get the chance, it's not, you also get to play against Everton, and you also get to play in a game that if you win it, you complete the double. So it was quite a game. But what a lot of people forget is that the last game of the season against Chelsea, when Kenny scored and we won the league, I didn't play in that game. I was ill. And you know what it was like in Liverpool in those days. Never changed a winning team. Mark Lawrenson played in midfield instead of me. And I was a bit worried leading up to the cup final, although I'd already played 58 games and scored 21 goals. But still, you just never know. But then when Kenny read the team, I was in the team. And then, of course, it's about being able to do the job. So first half was the typical Everton game. They make it frantic. They make it physical. They stopped us playing the football we like to play. But we knew that was coming. So it's a case of almost trying to survive that. And then at half-time, realising that we're not playing particularly well. Then the talk is, make sure they don't score again. We're getting beat 1-0. Let's not go 2-0 down, because then there's no way back. And then it's a case of use all our experience. Wait for your chances. And that chance came in the 57th minute. It was the first time they were caught. They'd been in a good shape all game, but that was the first time they were caught because of a misplaced pass. And on the wrong side of their two midfield players, from their point of view, all of a sudden now I'm in facing the two centre halves with Ian Rush being where he needs to be and just waiting for that pass. And I think that was the moment. It sometimes doesn't take more than that. And that moment where we equalised, I think everybody knew, including Everton, that was it. Mm-hmm. Because this is what we do. We waited for nearly an hour. We got our opportunity. And now we kill these things off. And we did, in the blink of an eye. We scored twice again. Really should have scored another two. I should have scored. Ian Rush should have completed the hat-trick. So in the end, it became the perfect afternoon. It became the perfect afternoon at Wembley. But it was tough. You play against Peter Reid and Paul Bracewell in midfield, and they had Graham Sharp and Gary Lineker up front, whatever. They were a really good team, and it took a lot. Physically, every game takes something out of you physically. Mm-hmm. Not so many games mentally, but this was a game mentally as well, where at the end of the game, your head is spinning because you just knew that you couldn't afford to make a mistake. You make a mistake, they score 2-0 or whatever. And so mentally, it was a very tough game, as it always was against Everton, certainly for the first 4 years when I was at Anfield. And so it was perfect, just sitting back in that dressing room with a little glass of champagne, socks and boots off, and just looking back on achieving something that no Liverpool team had ever done before. And still, since then, they still haven't managed to do since. So it was a remarkable season, finished off with a truly remarkable day.
Yeah, but back then, I think, the FA Cup was held in high esteem. I think it's lost some of that, over the years. But back then, for me, it was one of those where, you get up and the whole day is just FA Cup. Your mum and dad make sandwiches. They let you have a bit of shandy. I mean, even for the players, you get the walk on the pitch. Thank God you didn't have to do it in white. Oh no, look like candy stripers. But to play, Everton is and beat them is always a good thing. That it's one of the finals that really sticks with me. Just because that first half was tough, and it was like a different Liverpool side that came out in the second half, and it's just amazing to think of who was on that team. That to me is the team I think of when you compare it to today's. Maybe not this season's team, but the season where we won the league. I compare that to one of the best teams I've ever witnessed in my entire life. Is your era?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you talk about how excited you get for the cup final, equally we got excited. You know, the sort of whole. I guess today, to a certain extent, they would probably keep the players away from a lot. But in our day, you couldn't get enough of that build-up because you wanted to be part of it. You know, whether that was just interviews with newspapers and being on the radio and being seen and being heard, because this is big, you know, and we wanted to be part of it. And we went down to London on a Thursday, you know, to make sure we make the most of it, and had our fun in the hotel, but got to Wembley nice and early on a Saturday and lapped it all up, you know, went out and had a look on the, you know, all them things, isn't it? And then of course the game, isn't it? But you're right, I still get people today come up to me and go, my favourite game they say is still 1986, you know, because it was the first time in an FA Cup final against Everton. Two best teams, certainly the two best teams in the country at the time, isn't it? And they said the way we just snatched it away from them, isn't it? They made it just a perfect day, yeah. So, yeah, it's one of those things you never get tired of talking about.
Yeah, of course. You know, I never get tired of, like, you know, watching the highlights as well. Like, that's the thing. At least, you know, I'm not really technologically advanced, but it's so nice to get on YouTube and you can just relive that moment over and over again. You know, everybody can see how good the Liverpool team is, because, you know, I mean, both me and Steve, we're in our 50s as well. So, like, telling the younger generation, you know, there was a team before Klopp, you know, oh, what? Really? Yeah. Just go on YouTube and you can see all these amazing matches. So, yeah, I mean, that, like I said, that was one of the best matches I've seen and one of the best Liverpool sides I've witnessed. So, but I know Steve wanted to ask you about your managing career as well.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Kenny took over as player manager while you're there, and then you ended up in a kind of similar situation as Swansea City, right? So, kind of talk us into what those challenges were like to try to still be the player and managing a team at the same time. I know I do it on a Sunday rec level, you know, but at a professional level, I'm sure there's a lot more challenges. And how'd you navigate all those pitfalls that you probably were looking at every day?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I went to Norwich City on loan just before I left Liverpool. And the day before I joined Norwich on loan, the manager, Martin O'Neill, walked out. So they gave the job to Gary Megson on a caretaker. And I helped him doing the coaching. He said, can you coach? I said, yeah, I can coach. I mean, so he went, give us a hand. So I gave him a hand and we went through the month. And then when I was going back to Liverpool, he said, have you ever thought what you're going to do after football? I said, I haven't really given a thought. No, I mean, I'm 32. He said, coaching might be something. And then I got the offer for Swansea. And with what Gary said in the back of my mind, I took the Swansea job at 32 years of age, which was too young. And player manager is extremely tough. Having said all of that, I enjoyed it. I absolutely enjoyed it. And what I enjoyed was that I could still influence things through playing. And I guess that would have been the same feeling Kenny had, but when he became player manager. So I enjoyed it. It was tough. Obviously, in those days, you didn't have the backroom staffs that you do today. So you basically have to do everything yourself. So it was really tough, but it was enjoyable in many ways. I was there a few years too early because eventually they got the new stadium, and then since then Swansea had moved on, and all they were ever waiting for was a new stadium before they could move on. I never got the benefits of the new stadium, but I have to say I enjoyed it. But I enjoyed the coaching. I enjoyed the football. The rest, not so keen. But I understand when you're a manager, you have to do it all.
Right. I'm sure as you go up higher up on the table, those off-field responsibilities get a lot larger, and especially when you're a player at a top level, it's kind of, I would imagine, difficult to transition to, you know, not wanting to just be the player and then having to manage, you know, personalities and schedules and, you know, eating and drinking habits of your players and things like that.
I think it's almost impossible to be the manager all week and then just become a player on match days. And I struggled with that, you know, because you got to play with these guys, so you want to maybe be as close to them as you possibly can, but you still have got to have some distance in it. and then find that balance when you're playing on a Saturday, isn't it? You can't act like the manager on the pitch, can you? You have to be another player. So would I, if I had to go through all that again, would I make the same decisions? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't become player manager at 32 years of age. But if I did, I certainly wouldn't make the same decisions as I did. But you know, hindsight is just a wonderful thing, isn't it? But I did enjoy it. You know, I did enjoy that sort of. I think it's a natural progression. It's the most likely thing you're going to do once you've stopped playing, isn't it? You're going to stay involved, and you're going to stay involved in the playing side. So I'm not going to run away from it and say I never enjoyed it. I did enjoy it, as tough as it was.
You know, I'm currently taking my badges. I've been coaching youth for quite a few years, but finally decided to formalize some of my badges. But any you know, words of wisdom for people that are going into like youth coaching, you know, at the academy level, and having to, I mean, you I'm sure you still see the immense talent that's coming through the youth ranks, you know, there in the UK, but also here in the United States, there's a lot of talent coming. What kind of you know, advice would you give to somebody that's getting into coaching at those type of levels?
I think that in terms of the coaching, in terms of the drills that you do, we more or less all do the same, don't we? There isn't a great difference in how we spend the week. But I think the big thing is clarity. You know, clarity in that what you stand for. And that's what it's about, isn't it? It's about what you stand for. And then you being able to explain that. You know, I think there's too many who are too reckless in terms of we're doing this now, we're doing this. I think clarity is your big key, isn't it? Makes it easy for you, because then you always feel that you're doing the right thing because you're doing what you want to do, isn't it? Circumstances or surroundings can't change what you want to do because you're very clear in what you want to do. But I also think it helps your players. You know, it's all very good that in an ideal world, we dream that players can switch from one system to another, to another, to another. It's never that simple, is it? Yeah. You know, we only need to go back over the last 6 or 7 years as Liverpool fans and say when have we been absolute at our best, when we played absolute the way we want to play. Yeah, it's almost the same 11 players every week. It's the same tactic, isn't it? And that's what we do, isn't it? And I know it sounds, but even if you're not winning every game and not everybody can win, I still think clarity wins above anything else you can do, you know, and clarity simplifies it for players. You know, I think it's too easy to complicate it for players. Keep it nice and simple, all give them jobs to do, isn't it? But make sure they know what them jobs are. Then everybody just feels so much better and feels so much more confident going into matches. And I think that's very important. But I guess you will have your own ideas, isn't it? And I'm sure you'll do well, and good luck with your badges. Never easy to get.
Hey, you know, it's funny. A funny thing is that you mentioned that everybody does the same drills, right? As our viewers know, my son, we went to Madrid a couple of weeks ago, and he got trained by the Real Madrid Academy coaches and also the Atletico Madrid Academy coaches. And I went to watch the training sessions, thinking I'm going to get this huge revelation of, you know, drills and sessions, and they're practically the same things that we run, you know. So I was just like laughing, like I thought I was going to get this big epiphany, you know, on the training methods, but it was pretty much fundamentally that, like you said, everybody basically just steals and plagiarizes from everyone else when it comes to drills. There's only so many drills you can run, so I thought that was pretty interesting that you said that. Yeah, Daza?
No, that's the way it is, Steve, isn't it? You know. That's just the way it is. As you said, there's only so many drills, isn't it? But I guess it's what you get from the drills then once you set them in motion, isn't it? But no, good luck with it all.
Oh, thanks.
Now, John, we couldn't have an episode with you without asking about, you know, you've gone down in folklore, well, up until 2009 when you did the charity event to show the lost goal, as they say. You know, I've heard it from many people, scoring from 60 yards out, doing a Maradona, like all over the place. But it is a little crazy because it wasn't even Liverpool that videotaped it, was it? It was Ron Atkinson, Man United, but for training purposes, I guess.
Yeah, it's but there is a little bit of story to it. I mean, obviously there's the goal, which was my first goal.
It is a good goal.
Which was my first goal in front of the Cobb.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I ever scored at the Cobb end. And when you look again, YouTube, amazing, you can see it on there. And the only thing that amazes me about that is the noise from the Cobb. You know, back in those days, 20,000 people behind the goal, the noise to make is absolutely incredible. But you are right. The videotape, they used to video all their matches from handheld camera in the main stand, Manchester United. And they did that day. And about 2 years later, woke up one morning to take my son to school, and there was a videotape shoved through the letterbox. And it just said on it, "Have a look at this, Jan." And, came home from training, put it in, and there it was, the whole match. But this was towards the back end of the season. I think it was 87, 88 or something like that. So I took it back to Denmark because my family in Denmark hadn't seen it. And I showed it to all my friends and family in Denmark, and I just left it in Denmark. But I told people in the UK about the tape, and then in 2009, as Dad's like pointed out, a friend of mine texted me and he said, "I'm on one of the LFC forums, and we're talking about great goals, and they're talking about your goal now. Can I tell him you got a tape?" So I went, yeah. So he lets the news out that I've got a tape of the goals and then Liverpool Football Club rang me the next day. And he said, "Have you got a tape of that, Matt?" I said, "Yeah, I do, yeah." They said, "Can we have it?" I said, "Well, not really, no. I just want to keep it where it is, you know, because there will be people going, 'Is that it?' I expected something else, isn't it?" But, eventually, we came to an agreement with Liverpool Football Club, and we did a charity event at Anfield, where the highlight of the evening was showing the goals, because we beat them 2-1, and I obviously scored the first, but I also scored the second goal, the winner, within 90 seconds, isn't it? So, yeah. But I guess what made it at the time was Bob Paisley, who wrote a book talking about the season. And in that book, he talks about that goal and saying it's one of the finest efforts I've ever seen at Anfield, in terms of what it requires physically as well. He said, to be able to still have that amount of power at the end of a long run. Isn't it? So, yeah, it's, you guys decide, don't you? You know, as much as I want other things in my career to be my highlights, fans decide, don't they? So people come up to me and they go about the Everton Cup final in '86, they go on about the Manchester United goal, and they talk about penalties, you know what I mean? That's kind of what people remember me from, isn't it? And I guess in the end, it's not a bad deal, is it? You know, at least people remember you for something, isn't it?
Yeah. Not at all. I mean, like, your penalties, I mean, like, you know, as of now, you know, Salah's missed his last 2 penalties, and I think you only missed a handful of penalties in your career, and you scored 42 pens, right, for Liverpool.
Yeah, I took 45 penalties and scored
3 misses.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing, but you know, people do miss. It just drives him a bit crazy about, you know, Mo in the moment, you know, 2 misses out of how many, you know, penalties he's taken. So, I mean, but to score 42, you know, and I like how you've said, like, if the keeper didn't move, you'd go to the right, and if he did move, you'd go to the left. Because I mean, in many moments, you know, a penalty looks on, especially if you're watching on the telly, it looks pretty short. But when you're walking up there, putting the ball down, that goal looks smaller and smaller and smaller. And, you know, especially with so many thousands of people watching you, it's, you know, to score 42 is, you know, that, like you said, that's what you're known for. That's why people, you know, keep going on, because it's you've worked something out, obviously, if you score that many goals from that
was I mean, I think generally my personality helps. In I'm a relatively calm person as it is, and I think that helped in the penalties. But there is a couple of things you pointed out that makes the goal smaller, and one of them is pressure, and the second one is the goalkeeper and the size of the goalkeeper. You know, you've never ever played against a team where the goalkeeper isn't the biggest player in their team, is it? You know, the goalkeeper's always 6. Even in our day, I know they're a little bit taller today, and 6'4", 6'5", but it was still 6'2", 6'3", isn't it? So, you know, you stick a goalkeeper in there and then you add the pressure to it all. Yeah, it does make people nervous, absolutely. And as much as you say that, you know, every penalty should be scored, well, that's not how the world works, is it? So I think I've always worked along the lines of 8 out of 10. You know, I think that's a really good return. And Mo Salah's not a million miles of that either, and neither is Steven Gerrard, who scored the most penalties for Liverpool ever. So yeah, but the good thing with the penalties, and you'll know that I'm never going to miss another one, am I? So I can, you know, my record is never ever going to be changed. It is what it is, isn't it? So
yeah, let me ask you something about. You know, it seems like today there's so much histrionics when there's a penalty called, right? They're surrounding the ref, they're surrounding the player who's about to take it. Now, I mean, they kind of hide who's going to take it now, right? There's 3 people that stand next to the spot. They're scuffing the spot. What kind of gamesmanship did anybody do any stuff like that when you were up there to try to take a penalty? It seems like this has been just a newer kind of phenomenon, but I don't know.
I think it was almost like due to respect.
Right.
You know, once a penalty's been awarded, and there was no VAR in our day, once a penalty's been awarded, it's a penalty.
Right.
So people would respectfully walk away and you would grab the ball, put it on the spot. Most you will get John Fashion, I don't know if you remember John Fashion, who played for Wimbledon and Aston Villa or whatever. As I'm walking back, ready to take the penalty, he'll always go, £5. You know, if I miss, I've got to give him £5. If I score, he's got to give me £5. But he was the only one. He always goes, big boy, £5. And I go, yes, Fash, no problems. And I think he owes me about £15, but I'm not going to get that.
Yeah. I can't. I mean, the modern game, there's a lot of negative aspects to it. You just can't, you know, somebody that our age is that we don't really care for at all. But you know,
well, I mean, it's just football's changed so much. Some for the better, some not for the better. You know, I love a good tackle, and you were a very good tackler as well. You can barely tackle somebody now. You know, if you do, they go down like a bag of bricks. You know, and I think that's, you know, growing up 70s and 80s for me. You know, Liverpool. It's just watching tough lads. They take a hard tackle and they just get right back up. Now they're rolling around on the floor, and it just that's not football for me. You know,
what got matches going in the 70s and 80s? A good tackle. Yeah, you know, like today, you look at a game and you think this game needs to get going, but it's not a tackle that gets it going, is it? You know, it's maybe a bit of magic or whatever, is then it's a bit of good play and whatever. But in our day, it was a good tackle. And I've never ever played in football where a good tackle was the catalyst for the game to explode. But that's what it was like when I came to England. And I always remember Ronnie Moran. He would stand on the touchline with his bucket of water, and he'd stand on the touchline and he'd look at somebody and he'll go, get this effing match going. And whoever he was shouting that at would knew exactly what was required. And obviously sort of in the mid-80s, late 80s, that guy was Steve McMahon, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and Ronnie would get eye contact with Steve McMahon. He'd go, get this effing match going. And then 2 minutes later, Macca would rattle into one and bang, we're up, the crowd's up, and the game's on the way, isn't it? And that's what it was like in the 70s and 80s, because, again, go back on YouTube and watch great tackles that ignites a game of football. You know, today it's different, isn't it? So once you get over that, you know, people go, what was it like? Well, for the first 12 months, I thought it was brutal beyond being brutal, yeah? But once you get used to it, I never felt it was that bad. I always felt there was a certain amount of respect. People wanted to tackle you. People wanted to know that they were there, but nobody really wanted to hurt you. Yeah, of course, people get hurt, and they get hurt today, isn't it? Nobody wanted to hurt you. But it was the way that, it was a bit like the psychological aspect of the game today, which is surrounding referee and trying to put off people, whatever. In our day, it was a bit more visible in that it was sort of physical. Can we put them off their game by being physical? But once we got used to it, it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think that's
sorry.
why I still like Milner, because he'll come on and he'll put in a strong tackle, and that does get the game going. But yeah, these days it's like a little bit of a shove. I mean, you know, the game against Arsenal, was calling out for something like that, and then just a little little tackle by Xhaka on Trent got Liverpool going. And I don't, you know, I do miss those tackles. I mean, again, the physicality of the Premier League, it is very physical. You cannot really tackle a player. I mean, the two-footed challenge was in the 70s and 80s is what you wanted to see. I mean, obviously, you know, that player doing it doesn't want to hurt the other player, just wants to get the ball, just wants to say, all right, I'm here, I'm next to you. You're not getting past me for the rest of the game. And I seriously just missed that. You know, that's why, again, you know, YouTube is great. Like, if you watch Liverpool nowadays and you have a bad day, just get on YouTube and go watch the 70s and 80s matches, and it'll bring you back to a happy place.
What's a few challenges, eh? What's wrong with a few challenges?
No, exactly.
I agree in it.
Well, now you can't even touch the goalkeeper.
No, I know, yeah.
I mean,
you can't touch them, can you?
Yeah, like where's that come from? I mean, a goalkeeper, if the ball's in the air, it's there to be won.
Yeah.
So, you know, you touch a goalkeeper with a little bit of your elbow, that's it. Like,
you're in trouble.
Yeah, it's you know, I feel like I'm the old man now on my porch telling the kids to get off the lawn. It's just you know, it's just a time when I really loved. I mean, I still love football, but just watching it back then it was men versus men.
Yeah, but I think it was probably easier to feel you had a connection to the people who played the game, you know, and I don't blame the players today because something else has took them away from further and further away from supporters, isn't it? But back in the day, you felt you had a connection with these guys, isn't it? And I also guess you would have been watching a lot of sort of British players and thought, you know, these are representing me, isn't it? You know what I mean? And now I think we know that most players are not really that bothered where they play, as long as they get as much financially out of the game as they possibly can. So you don't quite get that. I always say that about the group of players that I played with, and as much as almost all of them are British, but they are from Scotland and Ireland and down south London, but they all still live in the area. And I find that, you know, all the Scottish, whether it's Kenny or Alan Hansen or Gary Gillespie, why haven't they gone back home? Well, there's something, isn't it? You know, and then they had a connection not only to the football club but also to the city, isn't it? So they're all still here, isn't it? In 20 years' time, you won't know where any of this group of players will be living. They would have all gone back home somewhere, you know, which is a shame.
Yeah, it is. Steve, you want to ask? I know I've got a few more, but if you want to.
No, I was just going to kind of expound on what you just said, Jan, is that, you know, we've had the luxury of bringing some legends over here, and a lot of them are still in the Liverpool area. You know, David Faircloth, you know, Gillespie, they're all still around the club. You can see them at the pubs, you know, outside the stadium. And like you said, I think in 20 years' time, you'll be hard pressed to find anybody that's living around Anfield of the current squad, you know. So totally generational shift, but I think it also goes back to how the connection between club and community has been in the past, and now with just the money involved in football, it just seems like that's a bygone day, which is kind of sad for us of our age group, right? So
I think for the club like Liverpool, that's important, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You know, it's important that we portray that image, because that's the image of the Liverpool Football Club, isn't it? You know, it's a family club, isn't it? And, you know, everybody likes to be involved, and that is then proved when you go to Anfield and you can stand outside and you will see 10, 15, 20 former players, you know, still going to the games and still being part of it, isn't it? And I think for a club like Liverpool, it's I think it's if you're a club in London or whatever, it's kind of easier to get away with it, not having that sort of village feel, isn't it? But I think it's important for Liverpool, and unfortunately we will lose that. That is absolutely true.
I wanted to before we let you go, you know, what would Jan MOLBY do? Obviously, Troy Hawke has brought you back into the limelight. It must be a proud moment to get a mural done of yourself, in Liverpool. It's there hopefully for the rest of time. How did that all come about? Because obviously Troy's a comedian, and I love his stuff outside the shops, and then he did the Man City one to Kevin De Bruyne. So how did that come about with Troy?
Well, in terms of Troy, and the first time I met him was at the Mural. And when I met him, obviously he was in character, which was a bit bizarre. But then again, that was the only way I knew him, wasn't it, in character? And then once they stopped filming, then he became normal, and we had a little chat. And I went, "Where did the MOLBY thing come from?" And he went, "I was just standing outside Waitrose, and they came out and they went, who's booked you?" And he went, "Oh, you want to see a chap called Jan Molby?" And he said, and that was it, really. And he just caught on from then. He said, but obviously the Manchester City one was when he exploded. So the mural is a kind of sponsored by people. So this guy thought it was a good idea to do it with Troy and me. And then I got a message that they were thinking of doing a mural. And I said, well, okay. It's difficult with murals, isn't it? Because who decides to be up on a wall? What is it all about? And it is a bit, so we obviously have current players and we have former players. And when he was the build up to it all, and I didn't think anything of it. But I've seen the reaction since, and it's only been a month or 6 weeks or whatever, isn't it? But every week there's 300, 400, 500 Danes over watching a match and whatever. And probably half, if not more, make a point of, because it's part of the match day experience now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that's, Klopp has the one in Liverpool, in town, which is a bit of a shame, isn't it? Because they really belong around Anfield, don't they? It becomes part of, get to Anfield 4 hours before the game, what can you do? Now all of a sudden you can walk around and see all these murals. And the fact that I'm there next to Trent and Hendo, a long throw in from Anfield, yeah, it is. And I see the reaction from my kids as well. The grown-up kids, 36 and 31, but even they go, because they never really saw me play that much, you know what I mean? But now for them, it's also real, isn't it? So I can't deny the things that I never thought much of on a Scouse or a mural or whatever I thought. But now it's here. It's kind of, you know what? It's quite nice, isn't it? It's quite nice to sort of fit into the history as the former players, because we can't all have the same. We can't all be King Kenny, can we? You know what I mean? So it's kind of you sort of fit in, isn't it? And the fact that I've fitted in a couple of places, yeah, I'm pleased, and more than anything else, I'm probably proud. Proud that, yeah, there we are up on that wall.
Yeah, so it's a good mural of you with the hair, If anyone's in Liverpool, it's on Sybil Road, and it's right by the Trent one as well. So yeah, I mean, people plan their trips around the murals as well. So that's just, like you said, it's just added another dynamic to come into to watch Liverpool play. You can go.
But isn't Liverpool about them things? For years we had the boot room, didn't we? And we had the sign, and all them things that we create, all these things that becomes part of our football club, isn't it? And this is the next thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is the next thing, visible to everybody, becomes part of our football club, isn't it? Because I'm absolutely convinced that the boot room has been exaggerated a little bit over time, but it suited its purpose, hasn't it? I don't think they sat in that boot room every night and drank whiskey till they, whatever. But it's been exaggerated and it's a bit like the murals, isn't it? And I think it just becomes part of already a good story. But every now and again, you just need to sort of add a little bit extra to that story, isn't it? And it just, even people who've been to Anfield is now giving them an extra reason to, we'll go back and we'll spend a couple of hours watching all the murals and everything. And so, yeah, it's tremendous.
All right, so 2 quick questions. Favourite goal scored for Liverpool, and then your toughest opponent you've played against?
So the favourite goal is the Manchester United goal because it was the one that really announced me. It doesn't matter who you are, you have to announce yourself. You can come to Anfield as a good player. I didn't come to Anfield as a good player because I was unknown. But we sign players who come to Anfield as great players, but you still have to announce yourself, don't you? And I remember Fernando Torres, he had to announce himself. And you more often than not, you do that with a goal, don't you?
Yeah.
And I sort of announced myself to the Liverpool crowd with that goal against Manchester United. That was the moment. And if you ever thought that, if you're ever going to score one goal for Liverpool in your career, make sure it's against Manchester United, because it takes it to another level, doesn't it? You know, it's as simple as that. And in terms of tough opposition, everybody had him. You know, I hated playing against Everton, Reed and Bracewell. But I have to be honest that I always think that the better the player you are, but you're also tough, the tougher you are to play against. And I was a massive big fan of Brian Robson because I thought Brian was a good player, but he was tough, but he was fair. And because he was a good player, sometimes you'd go, I've got him here. I know where he's going. And you go, bang, and he'd hit you because he'd be one step ahead of you. So Brian Robson, and I was a little bit naive in those days. I always used to say to the lads, why don't we sign him? He's a good player. And they go, we can't, you know. We can't sign somebody from Manchester United, you know what I mean? Wake up and smell the coffee, you know what I mean? But I thought Brian Robson was really special.
Nice one. Well, I'll tell you what, Jan, I'm so happy I've waited 3 years for this. It's another tick in the box because I have now, I think Steve, I think we've ticked every player in the team pretty much now. Maybe no, not Barnesy, but
well, we've got Barnes here in Austin, so I mean we can tick him off the box, right? We...
Have you not had John Barnes on this yet?
No, we'd love to. I mean, we've had Gillespie, Whelan, McMahon, Kennedy, Brucey, Loro, Tomo, Sammy Lee. So, yeah, I mean, we've had, 16, 17 former players. So,
well, if that's the case, Daz, we've got to get you Barnes, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, Barnes, he would just put the cherry on the cake. Well, King Kenny would put the 20 cherries on the cake.
I can imagine. Well, should we just start with John? Should we just start with John?
Yeah, just tell John to remember the barbecue that he had here in Austin when he came to visit us. He'll get on here real quick.
Yeah. No, he's a good boy, isn't he?
Yeah, it was great. It was a great event.
And
we hope to bring you. We hope that we can coordinate something with you in the future, John, to get you over here and meet our supporters club.
It'd be wonderful. It'd be wonderful.
A quick mention before I forget. You will be over in Vancouver, right, in October with Alex Malone, which we know Alex very well, and we promote that because it's going to be fantastic. It's got Gillespie, yourself, and John Aldridge as well. Yeah. So that's going to be a fantastic event. So if anybody's, not doing much, I think it's October 16th or 17th around there.
Yeah, it's definitely that weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to try and go. So I think it's going to be a great event. So we'll hope to finally meet you then as well. So but it's been my absolute pleasure to have you on, mate.
No, it's been tremendous, and it's been great speaking to both of you. And once again, happy anniversary and many more.
Thank you very much.